They gave me a night shift at the old metro station because I said I liked quiet work. After midnight, trains stopped, escalators froze, and only the ventilation and the sodium lamps kept humming like they were afraid of silence.
My job was simple on paper: walk the platforms, check the doors, watch the cameras, and trigger pre-recorded announcements if anyone stayed too long on the benches.
In reality, my job was sitting in a room that smelled like burnt dust and old coffee, pretending the tunnels were empty. The station used to be a busy transfer hub, but one line was shut down after a flood years ago, and half the corridors now ended in locked gates and pasted over maps.
We still called it Line 3 on the paperwork, but the trains there had been dead longer than some of the new staff had been alive.
On my first night, the supervisor pointed at the console with all the announcement buttons.
"These ones are pre-recorded," he said, tapping the plastic keys with his fingernail. "Please step away from the edge and all that. If you really have to talk yourself, you use this mic and hold this key, but try not to freak people out."
He laughed like he was used to his own jokes, then added the only part anyone said seriously.
"If you hear announcements on line 3, call me first and do not repeat them."
I thought he was messing with the new guy until I saw the way his fingers tightened on the doorframe before he left me alone. By 2 in the morning, the monitors showed nothing but empty benches, sleeping pigeons, and the occasional cleaner with a cart.
I leaned back, rubbed my eyes, and listened to the building's usual noises: air, electricity, my own breathing in the headphones.
That was when the announcement system clicked on by itself. I heard the relay thump in the wall, a sound like a finger tapping glass from the other side. The monitor showed a new overlay, Line 3 platform, even though that feed was supposed to be disabled. The camera picture was grainy, black and white, like old security tapes from another decade.
For a moment, I thought it was just archived footage playing by mistake, until I noticed the timestamp in the corner.
The time was live and matched my phone exactly. On the Line 3 platform, no one stood near the edge, no ghost train glowed in the tunnel. Still, the PA light stayed on. Then my voice spoke over the station speakers.
"Please step away from the edge of the platform."
It was my exact tone, my accent, even the slight tired drag at the end of the sentence that I'd heard in recordings before. I hadn't pressed any button. I lifted the headset off one ear and listened hard.
The words echoed faintly from the tunnel through the ventilation shafts, delayed by the distance, like someone repeating me from far away.
I checked the console logs. The last manual announcement it listed was from the evening rush hour, done by the day operator. There was no entry for what I'd just heard. I told myself it was some test file using my voice from the training session, something IT had pushed through without telling me. I didn't call the supervisor. On the second night, the announcement started earlier.
Line 3's feed woke up as soon as the last real train for the night left the working platform.
This time, the PA didn't use the standard warning script.
"Please do not lean over the tracks," said my voice.
I recognized the way I sliced the word tracks, the tiny catch in my throat on over. I hadn't said that sentence at any training. I opened the mic and forced a laugh into it, even though nobody was supposed to be there to hear. "Testing Line 3 channel," I said. "Keep it down, all right?" My words came back a second later over the speakers, but not the way I had spoken them.
"Keep it down, all right," repeated the station in my voice, but the all right scraped a little, drawn out like someone trying on the shape of the word.
It skipped the testing part entirely, as if editing me in real time.
I closed the mic and made a note in the logbook, handwriting smaller than usual. On the third night, the announcement started saying my name.
"Please step back from the edge, Andrea."
Hearing your own name in your own voice, coming from somewhere you are not, is like suddenly realizing there's a mirror behind you that you never hung. I checked the platform feeds again. Line 1, Line 2, ticket hall, escalators, all empty.
Line 3 showed only a flicker at the far end, where an old train should have been swallowed by concrete years ago.
"You hear that too, yeah?"
I jumped. I hadn't heard the cleaner come up behind me. She'd been on nights longer than anyone and moved as quietly as the dust carts she pushed. "Hear what, exactly?"
"The one that sounds like you," she said and didn't smile.
She nodded toward the ceiling speakers as another announcement rolled through with my throat wrapped around it.
Please stay behind the yellow line, Andrea.
Old building like this, she said softly, they pick up things. Voices, footsteps, the way a name feels coming out of someone's mouth.
I told myself she was just feeding my nerves, but her eyes never left the monitors for line 3. After she went back to her cart, I unmuted the microphone connected only to my headphones and spoke into it. Okay, I said quietly to the empty station. If you can repeat me so well, say something I haven't said yet. For a while, only the ventilation answered. Then my voice came back, not over my headphones, but from the ceiling in the real station.
Next train does not arrive.
I had never said that sentence in my life.
The words felt wrong even inside my head, like they were bending the grammar of the station.
On the line 3 monitor, a train had arrived anyway.
It wasn't any model we still ran. Its windows were too small, its headlights too bright and unfocused, like eyes unused to light.
No passengers waited on the platform, but the doors stayed closed as if holding a breath. The console chimed with an incoming call from a handset that shouldn't exist anymore. Source: Line 3 cab, the display said. My supervisor had told me to call him if Line 3 did anything, but I picked up first. Control, I said, and heard my voice echo back through the wires.
Control answered my own voice from the other end, perfectly matched in timing.
Then another voice joined mine on the line, deeper, slower, as if dragged along the steel rails before speaking.
We thank you for your patience, it said. We're learning your schedule.
The way it formed my language sounded like metal twisting until it became a mouth. I almost hung up, then thought of the cleaner and my supervisor and all the other people whose names the station might practice next. What do you want?
The line hummed like a train that wasn't there yet.
We are an interval, the deep voice said at last. We're the time between scheduled and actual. You stood here, once, waiting. You said nothing, but you thought a lot. We kept that.
On the monitor, the train on line 3 hadn't moved at all. Its doors now stood open, though I hadn't seen them slide.
I saw only darkness inside, with a hint of something reflective at the far end of the carriage, like a row of screens or windows looking back.
We are late, my voice said over the speakers in the station, layered under the deeper one.
Please board.
My legs tried to stand before my brain agreed, as if the station had already written me into the script of someone who obeys announcements. I slammed the emergency cutoff switch for line 3's audio. The speakers popped and fell silent. The train on the monitor was gone.
Empty platform, dead tracks, no timestamp glitch, no log entry.
Only my own breathing sounded wrong in the headphones, arriving half a heartbeat late. I called the supervisor then. Line 3 audio fault, I said.
He swore, then told me to shut the feed and not mention it in the official log. Write that you were testing backup systems and accidentally triggered a loop. He said like he'd given that instruction before.
When I hung up, the console showed a new status line at the bottom of the screen. Custom message saved. Andrea Platform 03.
I never saved any custom messages.
After that night, I stopped using the mic altogether. If someone lingered near the edge, I triggered only the oldest, most generic recordings in the system, the ones that sounded like they were from another century. Even so, the station learned new lines.
I would be walking the platform at 3 in the morning, alone, and hear my voice spill from the ceiling like water.
Next train will not stop for you, it would say, choosing the part of my head that doubted I deserved anything on time. Please remain behind what you were doing to do, Andrea.
The grammar frayed, but the intent was clear. The station wasn't just repeating safety phrases, it was picking up the parts of me that waited and never stepped forward. I started talking back, but only in my head. I told the station I was not going to board any train it conjured from nowhere.
That I would finish my contract, find a daytime job, and forget the taste of dust in my mouth at dawn.
The station answered me with delays. Day trains started arriving off schedule whenever I worked a minute late, 5 minutes 10. Colleagues joked I was cursed, that the system didn't like me.
They hadn't heard my name in the announcements yet.
On my last week, after I had already signed transfer papers to a different depot, the station tried one more time. It waited until just before dawn, when the sky above the station lids was turning the same color as fluorescent tubes. All the lights flickered once, like the building shivered. Every working line went quiet on the monitors.
Only line 3 turned on, clear and bright, as if it had been freshly renovated instead of flooded and sealed.
A train already waited there with its doors open. Inside, the reflecting surfaces at the far end weren't windows or screens. They were speakers.
Rows and rows of speakers instead of seats, facing the doors like an audience.
Please board, Andrea, my voice said one last time from the ceiling above my head in the real station.
We're almost fluent.
I took off my headset carefully and set it on the desk, as if any sudden movement might be written down. Then I did the only thing I thought the station wouldn't expect from me. I walked out without saying a word.
No goodbye to the cameras, no last check of the feeds, no polite closing announcement about service resuming soon.
I climbed the dead escalator on foot and pushed through the still locked entrance as if it had always been unlocked for people who didn't listen.
Behind me, I heard the muffled echo of my own voice calling my name again, swallowed quickly by the city traffic above.
Months later, on a bus passing that station, I heard a familiar tone in the overhead speakers as they announced the next stop.
Please exit through the rear doors, it said in my voice, but the phrase was clean, correct, boring.
Everyone around me obeyed without thinking. I wondered, not for the first time, how many pieces of myself the station had managed to share with the rest of the network before I walked away. Some nights, when I can't sleep, I scroll videos of faraway stations on my phone.
In the background of one clip from another country, I heard an announcement telling people to stay behind what they were going to do.
The words were wrong in that language, but the rhythm was mine. I closed the app and set the phone face down, listening to the quiet of my room.
In the distance, so faint I could pretend I imagined it, something thanked me for my patience in a voice that started as mine and ended as something else entirely.
On the night security shift, Dima liked the building best when it was almost empty. After midnight, the glass doors reflected more of the inside than the street, and the cameras showed only cleaners, insomniac programmers, and his own bored face and split screens.
The building had 3 elevator banks and 1 stairwell almost nobody used anymore, labeled Stairwell C in small, patient letters.
Stairwell C was for emergencies, fire drills, and people who didn't exist on the badge system. On paper, the building had 22 floors above ground, 3 underground, and nothing secret in between. On the monitors, however, Stairwell C sometimes showed more landings than the plans allowed. Pixelated numbers above the doors flickered through sequences that did not exist in the elevator menus. He had written it off as a camera bug until the night the fire alarm on level 0 went off. Level 0 didn't exist. Basement levels were labeled -1 to -3 on every schematic he'd ever signed. Yet the alarm panel insisted, fire event, Stairwell C, level 0. Dima checked the cameras first, like the manual told him to do before moving anywhere alone. The feed from Stairwell C showed concrete steps, metal railing, and a faint haze that might have been smoke or might have been the camera dying. The floor number in the corner read, C0. It blinked once, then changed to C1, then back again, like someone flipping a coin in the dark. He called the night supervisor to report the alarm.
Check it out and reset it if it's just dust, the supervisor said. If you smell smoke, call me back before you die.
The line went dead with a laugh that did not travel well over cheap wiring. Dima took the master key ring, the portable radio, and the small flashlight that ate batteries faster than it ate darkness. He told himself that going alone was faster than waiting for the fire brigade to arrive and laugh at a false alarm.
Stairwell C's door was heavy and always slightly colder than the rest of the building, as if the concrete behind it stored a different weather.
Tonight, when he opened it, the air had no smoke at all, only a thin, damp chill that smelled like underground parking long after rain. The fluorescent tubes buzzed overhead, some flickering, stair edges painted with chipped yellow stripes. The landing sign at his eye level reads C3 for the sub-basement he was on. Below that, an arrow pointed down into concrete that ended 3 floors too early. The alarm panel had said level 0. Dima started down. C2 looked normal. Gray door, emergency exit sign. No smell of burning, no heat pressing at the metal. C1 the same, cold metal, locked door, no sign of life on the other side. Directly below that, there should have been the ground level exit. Instead, the stairs continued, and the next landing sign reads C0. The door at C0 was different. Older paint under newer, handle polished brighter than the others, as if used by hands that did not register on any camera. His radio crackled sharply against his shoulder, making him flinch.
Control report status.
Stairwell C0, no visible smoke, no heat, he answered, his own voice sounding too loud.
He waited for the supervisor's board reply. The reply came, but it wasn't the supervisor.
Don't open that door yet.
The voice on the radio had his supervisor's pattern, the same clipped rhythm, but higher, thinner, forced through a throat that wasn't used to phrases. Dima pulled the radio away from his ear, checked the channel, tapped the side as if that could knock sense back into it.
Copy.
Static hissed for a full 3 seconds, measuring him.
You already opened it elsewhere. The radio said at last. Not here yet.
Every hair on his arms lifted as if the stairwell had filled with a draft only his skin could feel. He set the radio volume down to a murmur and turned his flashlight on the door. Fire alarm or not, protocol said you opened any active zone and made sure it wasn't a false event. He put the master key in the lock and turned. The lock resisted like a muscle clenching around metal, then gave way. Behind the door was more stairwell, but not the same one.
The concrete was the wrong shade, slightly too smooth, the lights too evenly spaced, the echo of his breathing a fraction of a second late returning to him.
The floor sign on the opposite wall reads simply, 0. He stepped through, and the door closed behind him without his hand on it. The radio crackled again, but now it sounded farther away, like someone was using it 2 flights above him and 3 flights below at the same time.
Control to Dima. What's your status?
I'm at level 0 in Stairwell C, he said, listening to how the words landed against the walls.
On his radio, his supervisor swore softly.
There is no level 0, Dima. Come back up.
Dima turned toward the door he had come through. There was no door anymore. The wall behind him was whole, unbroken concrete, painted the same pale institutional color as everything else. Only the floor sign reading 0 proved he had moved at all. He aimed his flashlight down. The stairs continued. The radio hissed once more, and a child's voice slipped through the static, careful and slow.
How many times will you go down before you notice you're not closer?
Dima didn't answer.
He chose up, not down, because up had floors he knew and down had only numbers that weren't supposed to exist.
After 12 steps, the next landing came into view. The sign on that wall also reads 0. The air felt slightly warmer, as if someone had just walked through it. He climbed again. Another landing, another 0. The radio kept count for him, a faint overlapping of different versions of his own voice, recorded on other nights he didn't remember losing.
3rd time, 7th time, 12th time.
Sweat slid down his back under the uniform, cooling too slowly. On what the radio decided to call the 14th time, he stopped and looked back down.
There were landings below him, each one with a 0 sign, each one at the same impossible distance, none getting fuzzier with perspective.
He was not between floors. He was inside one repeating.
Return route found, said the deep voice of the building through the radio, amused. Stop walking until instructed to proceed.
Dima sat on the step instead, heart thudding against the hard edge of concrete. Above, the lights hummed steadily, never flickering now that he wanted them to go out and reset everything. The child's whisper returned, closer this time, as if sitting on the step behind him.
If you go until you forget you're supposed to reach the ground, it will keep you.
He swallowed and finally asked the question that felt heavy in his mouth.
What are you?
Something in the concrete laughed softly, like gravel shifting under pressure.
We're the level they left out when they drew the plans, the deep voice said. We catch the steps that don't arrive anywhere. Your building lost count once, so we keep count for it.
Dima thought of all the times he had taken the stairs between only 2 floors and arrived exhausted, feeling as if he'd gone further than he should have. Of the delivery guy who had complained the stairwell felt longer at night.
Of the cleaner who refused to use Stairwell C after midnight because it added something extra to her shift.
His radio clicked, and his real supervisor's voice finally bled through, distant and panicked.
Dima, answer me if you hear this. We can't see you on any camera.
The child's whisper overlaid his supervisor's words, thin but clear.
If you answer him now, you'll answer us too. We like to keep the here in your voice.
His tongue felt thick, his throat dry as if the stairwell air had started to drink instead of him. He held the radio close and pressed the transmit button without speaking. Static roared briefly, then steadied, a line between him and the rest of the building.
Dima, if you can hear me knock 3 times on something, his supervisor said. We'll send the brigade to that stairwell.
The deep voice spoke over him, not louder, just more at home in the acoustics.
If you knock 3 times, we will know exactly where to fix you in the sequence. You will always be the one at this landing, walking but not arriving.
Above and below, other landings shifted slightly as if chairs in a queue had moved one space forward.
Dima pressed his free hand flat against the cold wall. He did not knock. Instead, he stood up slowly and chose a direction no stair diagram had ever drawn. He swung his leg over the railing. The empty center of the stairwell yawned below him, an open shaft with shadows in place of floors.
No steps lead there, the child whispered, suddenly frightened. We don't count that.
Good, Dima said, and this time his voice sounded like it belonged to him again.
He did not jump.
He lowered himself onto the narrow insulation ledge that ran around the shaft, the strip of concrete nobody bothered to label on plans.
One hand on raw pipe, one shoulder scraping the unfamiliar wall, he edged along the inside of the stairwell where no steps led. The radio cursed in 3 voices at once, none of them truly his.
You are leaving the counted path.
That's the idea.
He moved until his legs shook, until his fingers went numb on the pipe, until the next landing's 0 sign was level with his chest instead of his boots. From this angle, he could see something the posted diagrams never drew.
Behind the 0 sign, the wall thinned to almost nothing, a seam of lighter paint where a door outline had been painted over, not built over.
He reached out and pushed at the seam with his free hand. The concrete moved, not crumbled, not cracked, moved, like a door remembering how to be a door. Behind it was not another stairwell, not level 0 or level 1, but the familiar flicker of the security room monitors. He smelled his own half-finished coffee before he saw the back of his chair.
Time to get off the stairs, the child's whisper said, sounding almost relieved.
Dima shoved harder, teeth clenched, until the disguised door yawned wide enough for him to fall through. He hit the floor of the security room hard enough to rattle the chair wheels. The radio on his chest spat one last word in the deep voice.
Counted.
Then it went dead. On the monitor labeled Stairwell C, the camera showed the ordinary concrete flights between -3 and the lobby. No 0, no extra landings, no repeating signs. His supervisor burst into the room, eyes wide.
Where the hell did you just come from?
Dima glanced at the wall behind him.
There was no seam, no 0 sign, no door, just fiberboard and paint and a safety poster about lifting correctly.
He brushed dust from his uniform and sat back in his chair, muscles shaking now that they were allowed to.
False alarm on C, he said finally. Dust in the sensor.
On the alarm panel, the event log now read, source unknown, reset by, system. The supervisor stared at it, then at Dima, then decided this was above his pay grade to understand. When he left, Dima turned down the volume on the radio until it was silent. On the monitors, Stairwell C remained agreeable and finite.
Only the tiny floor indicator above the lobby entrance door betrayed anything. When no one was watching but the cameras, it sometimes blinked 0 between G and 1 as if clearing its throat.
Months later, when new guards were trained, Dima caught a line in the updated procedures he was sure hadn't been there before. In the section about fire alarms and stairwells, one bullet point had been added in smaller font. Do not respond alone to events flag on level 0 in any stairwell. If level 0 appears repeatedly during your shift, inform control that the building has started counting again. Dima ran his finger under that line for a long time, as if it might smudge away. On the monitor in the corner, stairwell C showed a cleaner pushing a cart up from floor -1 to ground. For 3 frames between floors, the overlay changed to 0. Then it returned to G like nothing had happened, and the cleaner sighed as if the stairs had added something extra to her shift again. The elevator in Artyom's building had always pretended there was no 13th floor. Between 12 and 14, the panel just showed a thin blank strip of metal, polished by decades of not being touched. The residents joked about it the way people joked about anything that made them uncomfortable and never actually changed.
Artyom had lived there since childhood, watched new paint peel over old, heard every rumor about what the missing floor had been.
Mostly, he treated it as a glitch in architecture, something to roll his eyes at when visitors asked. The building was old enough to have had other lives before his, and he didn't feel responsible for its missing pieces. Then the new intercom system was installed. A glossy black screen replaced the rattling metal speaker by the entrance, the kind that showed names in a pale digital list when you touched it. On the day it went live, the residents crowded around to find their apartments in the menu. Artyom scrolled past his name on the 11th floor, past the 12th, curious to see how it skipped. It didn't. Between the 12th and 14th, the screen calmly displayed 13 service corridor. There was no apartment number, just a small bell icon next to the word corridor, as if the hallway itself could be called.
Someone behind him laughed and said it must be a software bug.
A few days later, Artyom came home late, long after the intercom had stopped being interesting. The screen lit automatically as he passed, offering the familiar list of residents and floors. The line that read 13 service corridor pulsed once, faintly, as if noticing him. He told himself not to be stupid and went to the elevator. The elevator doors opened on an empty cab, its fluorescent light buzzing like an insect caught in a jar. He stepped inside and hit 11. The button for 14 lit up instead. He pressed 11 again, harder. The elevator panel chimed softly, the way his phone did when he mistouched the screen.
Floor selection unavailable for this route, the speaker said in a voice that tried and failed to sound human.
Artyom stared at the metal, convinced it was a prank someone had wired into the system.
Take me to 11.
The panel chimed again.
Route adjusted.
The elevator began to rise. It passed 2, 4, 7, 10. The numbers blinked by in a steady rhythm. Between 12 and 14, no number lit up at all, but the elevator slowed anyway. The doors opened on a corridor that had not been there before.
No floor number was painted on the wall. No apartment doors broke up the length of it.
It stretched straight in both directions, lit by a line of tired ceiling lamps that did not seem to end. The air smelled faintly of warm dust and wet concrete, like a stairwell after rain. In the middle of the corridor, exactly opposite the elevator, stood a metal chair with no one in it. Artyom leaned forward, one foot still inside the elevator. The sensor over the door clicked impatiently, reading his presence, waiting to know whether it should close.
Service corridor, the speaker in the ceiling said. Please take a seat.
He stepped back and hit the close door button with his palm. The button did not light. The chair scraped a few centimeters across the floor, as if someone unseen had pushed it back from the corridor and angled it toward him. Artyom pressed the lobby button.
Route in progress, the elevator said pleasantly.
The door stayed open. He told himself the simplest lie he could think of, one he would have mocked from someone else.
This is some kind of maintenance test.
The corridor's lights dimmed in agreement, as if the building appreciated his attempt at explanation. A second chair appeared at the far end of the hall, its thin legs flickering into existence between one blink and the next. Then a third closer.
The chairs aligned themselves into a loose queue down the center of the corridor, all facing the elevator.
Nothing sat in them, but each chair cast two shadows, one honest, one slightly delayed.
Please take your place in line, said the intercom speaker in the elevator ceiling. Failure to comply may delay your return.
Artyom realized then that the elevator cab had lost its reflected walls. The metal no longer gave back his face, only the pale suggestion of a shape that might be his if you didn't look too closely. He stepped out onto the 13th floor. The air pressed around him like water in a deep pool. He sat in the nearest empty chair facing the elevator. The metal was warm, as if someone had just stood up from it. The elevator doors closed with a soft finality. He expected the car to leave, to rise or fall, to keep serving the building above and below. Instead, the indicator above the doors showed one new symbol, a simple, unnumbered dash. Ahead of him, the line of chairs stretched away into a perspective that hurt to follow to the end. He heard breathing. It did not come from him.
Third in line, whispered a voice just behind his left ear.
He turned and saw nobody in the chairs immediately behind him, only dents in the cushions, the air above them trembling.
You're third in line, repeated the intercom politely. Please wait to be processed for return.
Far ahead, where the corridor narrowed into a vanishing point, a door opened just enough to spill a line of colder light across the floor.
Something stepped through, placed something seated back into the line, and withdrew. The chairs advanced one space closer to the elevator with a soft, collective scrape.
Second in line, said the intercom.
Artyom's chair slid forward without his legs moving. Behind him, the empty impressions in the cushions deepened, as if something heavier had just sat down.
What are we waiting for?
Your correct return, answered a low voice from somewhere within the walls.
The building's throat, he thought absurdly, before the idea stopped feeling like a metaphor.
First in line, said the intercom.
His chair reached the exact spot opposite the sealed elevator doors. Beyond the doors, he could hear faint footsteps going up and down stairs that no one used anymore.
Processing, murmured the corridor.
A second voice, thinner and shredded by static, layered over the first.
Don't accept the wrong floor.
He almost turned, but his neck felt gently braced by invisible hands.
Return path found, said the intercom in a cheery, rugged version of his own voice. Destination service floor.
Not mine.
The corridor went very still.
Rejected, whispered dozens of near-silent voices from every chair behind him.
The elevator doors opened again.
This time, they showed his floor, the tired, familiar hallway of 11, with its chipped paint and the mat outside his door.
The temptation to rush through and be done with it almost knocked him out of the chair.
Check, hissed the whisper behind his ear.
Artyom scanned the doorway for something out of place. There it was. The mat in front of his door read "Welcome" back in clean, uncracked letters. His real mat had lost the B years ago.
Wrong floor.
Return declined, said his own voice from the intercom, glitching at the edges like a video buffer.
The doors closed on the almost straight corridor. The chairs shifted again. Behind him, something laughed softly, the sound moving farther away as if its own chair had been taken into the light at the end.
Second attempt, murmured the low voice in the walls.
The elevator doors opened onto his floor again. This time, the mat was correct, the paint chips familiar.
But his name on the doorbell plate had an extra letter, like a typo the building hoped he wouldn't notice.
Almost, said the whisper.
Wrong floor.
Return declined.
The chairs behind him thinned by one more shadow. Long after, Artyom could not say how many tries it took. He saw his corridor with a different neighbor's welcome sign, with his own shoes on the wrong side of the mat, with a calendar showing a date he had not yet lived. Each time he said the same two words.
Wrong floor.
Each time, the cue shifted, the unseen people behind him being served, taken somewhere that accepted their mistakes.
At last, the elevator doors opened on a version of 11 that looked right and felt right, in the way a room feels right when your body recognizes the exact distance between table and wall.
The mat read "Welcome AC." The nameplate had his proper spelling. From inside his flat came the soft, off-key humming of the neighbor above, exactly as it always did at this hour.
This is mine.
Return accepted, said the elevator in a neutral tone that belonged to no one.
The corridor's chairs scraped backward, resetting to their starting position somewhere beyond his sight. Artyom stepped through into his floor and did not look back until his door was shut and bolted twice. Later, when he finally dared to ride the elevator again, the panel behaved like old metal and nothing more. The intercom by the building entrance, however, now had a new line under service corridor. Underneath the pulsating bell icon, in smaller letters, it read, "Estimated queue time, variable." Artyom tried to scroll past it to see if his name had changed anywhere. For a second, the screen glitched and showed a view of the endless corridor instead, chairs waiting, dash glowing above a closed set of doors.
Third in line, whispered his own voice from the speaker, from some recording taken without his consent.
Then the display snapped back to the normal menu. The elevator in Artyom's building still pretended there was no 13th floor.
But sometimes, when a new tenant moved in and mispressed the buttons, residents would hear chairs scraping somewhere between 12 and 14, getting ready.
By her third month on night shift, Karina had memorized every harmless sound of Ward 12. The distant hiss of oxygen, the soft beeping from monitors 2 doors down, the wheels of a loan cart squeaking across polished linoleum. Anything outside that narrow orchestra of routine made her stop, listen, and count the seconds until it went away. Around 2 in the morning, the hospital's public address system let out a low, tired crackle. Karina glanced up from her charting.
The PA was never used at night unless there was a code or a drill.
A voice spilled down from the speaker, thin and grainy, as if traveling a long way through dust.
Record request for Karina Ivasho. Please report to Archive Sublevel 1.
Her own name, pronounced correctly, slid under her skin like a cold needle. Karina pressed the intercom button on the desk to call the main operator.
Switchboard, this is 12. Did you page me?
A sleepy male voice answered, thick with boredom.
Negative 12. No pages to your floor in the last hour.
Karina looked back up at the ceiling speaker, its small red light already dim again.
Is there even an archive sublevel 1?
There was a pause on the line, papers rustling.
Basement's got records, sure, but we just call it the file room. No sublevels. You good up there?
All good.
When she hung up, the corridor felt slightly off, as if it were half a degree colder than it had been a minute ago. On the schedule pinned to the board, someone had circled her name on the 2 a.m. block with a thin, shaky line of blue ink. The ink was still wet. Karina checked each patient room. Everyone was asleep or pretending to be. When she stepped into the stairwell to get some water, she noticed a new button on the elevator panel beside the door.
B, 1, 2, 3, 4, and below B, a small unlit square etched with a single, crooked mark.
It looked less like a letter and more like something someone had scratched there with a key. When Karina pressed it, nothing lit up, but the elevator doors opened anyway. The elevator interior lights flickered once, then steadied into a slightly dimmer shade than usual. She hesitated, thinking of the patients upstairs, the charting still unfinished, the safe boredom of routine. Then the ceiling speaker above the elevator door crackled softly.
Karina Ivasho to Archive Sublevel 1.
The doors began to close on their own. She stepped fully in without quite meaning to, her hand hovering near the open door button and then not pressing it. Inside the elevator, the control panel had changed. Between B and 1, a new floor glowed in soft amber letters, -1A. Before she could think better of it, Karina pressed -1A. The elevator did not move down so much as it seemed to move away from the rest of the building. The usual hum of cables and machinery blurred into a deeper, slower grind, like shelves being dragged across concrete in some large room. After what felt like far too long, the doors opened onto a corridor she had never seen on any floor plan.
The air smelled of old paper and cold metal, with a faint undertone of something antiseptic and sweet that had gone stale years ago.
The sign above the double doors opposite her read archive in faded stencil letters. No one waited for her, but she could hear the low whir of something mechanical running behind the doors, steady as a heartbeat. Karina pushed the bar. The room beyond was cavernous, larger than any space she knew the hospital had underground. Rows upon rows of shelves and cabinets stretched away into gloom, labeled not with patient names but with years, some of them scratched out and written over. Near the entrance stood a metal desk with a reel-to-reel tape machine humming on top, its spools slowly turning though no one sat nearby. As she stepped closer, the tape hiss resolved into a voice reading names and numbers in a flat, practiced tone.
Case 2481. Ivashko, Karina. Night admission pending. Outcome not yet filed.
Her own surname hung in the air, threaded through with other, overlapping voices that seemed to be repeating it at slightly different speeds. Someone had left a small card file open on the desk, its drawers labeled intake, discharge, transfer, and unsorted. The unsorted drawer was lined with tabs that had no names, only thin black lines where letters should be.
Hello.
Her greeting rolled out across the shelves and came back to her late, as if it had taken a detour.
Hello.
The reply used her exact inflection, but it arrived from a different aisle, 4 rows over. She moved deeper between the shelves, her shoes whispering over the concrete.
Each corridor was marked with a small metal plate at eye level, stamped with words like nights, admissions, incidents, and one that simply read lost.
As she passed the aisle labeled nights, the tape machine behind her clicked, and another reel spun up on its own.
Case 1197. Unrecorded code blue, Ward 12. Audio available.
The room filled with the faint sounds of hurried footsteps, alarms, and a woman shouting for a crash cart in a voice Karina recognized only from old training recordings. The PA in the ceiling chimed again, but the chime was wrong, a note too slow, too stretched.
Please retrieve file for Karina Ivashko, the voice said. Classification pending.
Where is it?
Her question did not echo this time. It sank, swallowed by the room, and returned a moment later from 3 different directions at once.
Where is it?
A single drawer halfway down the lost aisle slid open a few centimeters on its own. Karina approached it, every instinct in her telling her to go back to the elevator, to the bright floors and the predictable beeps. The drawer label was blank. Inside, there were only a few folders, their tabs also empty, as if they were waiting for names that hadn't been decided yet. She touched the first one. The ceiling speaker clicked softly, like someone switching on a recorder.
State your full name for the record.
The question pressed against her teeth, polite and heavy at the same time.
Karina thought of the note they all signed in training, the one that said all calls and communications in the hospital might be recorded for quality purposes.
She did not answer the question. The tape reels slowed, then resumed, now playing old overhead announcements about visiting hours and parking validation as if nothing had happened. Karina pulled the folder out anyway. Inside were printed logs of every night she had ever worked, admission times, medication passes, code calls she had responded to. At the bottom of the last page, the text stopped halfway through a sentence. Nurse Ivashko present in archive sub-level 1 for comm. The rest of the letters were missing, as if the printer had run out of ribbon at that exact moment. From deeper in the stacks, she heard a voice she recognized far too well.
Karina, did you lose something?
It was her own voice from a week ago, joking with a colleague over the ward phone after misplacing a pen. The archive had kept it trimmed of context, shelving it under a different question. Another shelf came alive nearby, a small wall speaker crackling above it.
You can tell me where to file you, Karina, the deeper voice murmured. Intake, discharge, transfer, lost.
Every nearby speaker seemed to breathe on the last word, the air around her ribs tightening in response. Karina clutched the folder to her chest and stepped backward down the aisle. Somewhere behind her, a phone began to ring, the sound distant and underwater. On the tape, her own voice answered it from another night entirely.
Ward 12, this is Karina.
But the reply on the tape was not the one she remembered.
We were archived sub-level 1. Status check, Bay. Are you aware of your location?
Her recorded self hesitated.
Yes.
Karina had never had that conversation, but the archive had filed it under her name anyway. She turned and walked quickly toward where she thought the door should be. The aisles seemed to stretch as she moved, the distance between markers lengthening by a step with every breath. Above her, one speaker whispered in a voice that sounded like her own grandmother reading a bedtime story in another language.
You are not the first one who came down when they called a name, the deeper voice said calmly. We keep every answer we get.
She thought of all the times she had said her name on the phone, on recordings, into dictation apps, into training simulations. Fragments of those sounds clustered on the shelves around her now, waiting to be sorted. Karina stopped between two aisles, the folder still in her hands.
If I don't say anything else, she whispered, you can't file a new outcome for me.
Her whisper still carried, the archive greedy for it, but it was not the full sentence the deeper voice had asked for. Somewhere near the desk, the elevator dinged softly, as if a floor had been reached. Karina walked toward the sound without looking at any more labels, without reading any more half-printed lines. The tape machine called after her in her own voice, stitched together from other nights.
Karina, wait. Karina, you forgot to sign. Karina, you still owe us your outcome.
She did not answer. The doors to the archive stood open now, the corridor beyond them exactly as it had been, as if no time had passed. The elevator awaited with its doors half open, the -1 a button dark again, as if it had never lit up. Karina stepped inside and pressed 1, the most ordinary choice available. The ride-up was short and quiet, the usual boring mechanical noises back in place. When the doors opened onto Ward 12, the clock over the nurse station read 2:01 a.m. Her charting still sat open where she had left it, unsaved, cursor blinking. The schedule on the wall no longer had her name circled. On the desk, the ward phone handset rested slightly askew, as if someone had just put it down. Karina picked it up and listened. On the other end, beneath the quiet line noise, she could hear the soft whir of tape reels and the distant murmur of her own voice reading names she did not recognize yet. She hung up without speaking. In the weeks that followed, the PA on night shift remained mostly quiet except for the usual drills and announcements. But every now and then, around 2 in the morning, it would crackle and whisper a request in her own voice.
Record request for Karina Idasho. Outcome still pending.
Karina never answered it out loud. She simply kept working, filling in forms, charting nights, adding more and more pages that would one day make the folder in the drawer heavier. Deep beneath Ward 12, in a room most maps did not show, an unsorted drawer waited with a tab that still had no name typed on it.
The archive did not mind waiting.
On the night route that circled the edge of the city, the bus was almost always empty after 3 a.m. Lena liked it that way. No drunks, no rush, just the soft hiss of the doors and the low growl of the engine carrying her toward dawn. Dispatch checked in with her every hour over the radio, a voice in her ear to remind her the city still existed beyond the glass.
Route 723, status checked.
All good. 723 rolling east.
Her own voice sounded small in the empty bus when it came back through the cabin speakers a fraction of a second later. The route was simple: depot, industrial strip, the new glass offices that looked wrong in the dark, then the long curve past the high-rise clusters on the hill. The hill was where she first saw him. He stood at a stop no one used anymore, a narrow shelter with one broken pane and an out-of-date timetable. He wore a thin office coat over his shirt, no umbrella, hair dripping onto his collar. He raised his hand just once as if out of habit, not expectation. Lena braked and pulled in beside him, doors wheezing open onto the wet pavement. He stepped up without meeting her eyes and held out a card that never quite caught the light. The reader beeped, but the screen showed no fare, no time, just a blank green band where numbers should be. She told herself the rain was interfering with the display and waved him through. He sat in the middle of the bus, not too close, not all the way back, hands on his knees as if waiting to be called on.
Next stop.
His answer came without delay, like a reflex.
Depot.
The word sounded heavier than it should, like it had been dropped down a long hallway before reaching her. Nobody rides all the way back from here, she thought, not at this hour. Still, she drove. At the next stop, no one got on or off. At the one after that, the same. Lena checked the mirror again. The man sat exactly as before, drops of water no longer falling from his hair, coat unwrinkled despite the ride. Dispatch crackled to life at her elbow.
723. Confirmed one passenger picked up at Hill Shelter.
Confirmed. Ride into depot.
Copy.
Behind her, the tape sign announcing the next stops remained dark, though she knew the system was still on. When they neared the glass office district, the man finally shifted.
You changed your route.
Liam blinked, fingers tightening on the wheel. The words had come from the middle of the bus, but the voice was hers.
Dispatch. Did you just say something about my route?
Negative. 723. Hold current pattern.
The hum didn't belong to the radio. It ran up through the frame of the bus itself, a vibration she felt in the pedals and the seat. She risked another look in the mirror. The man was watching her now, eyes reflecting no light at all.
Everyone changes the route after the first time.
The tone was wrong, too deep to come from his chest alone, as if the seats around him were lending their hollow frames to his voice. Lena swallowed and kept her eyes forward.
What first time?
The question left her mouth in a whisper, but came back over the speakers at a normal volume, slightly delayed.
First time you noticed the loop.
He was right. The glass offices passed by again. The same smudged advertisement on the same bus shelter, the same flickering crosswalk sign stuck on orange. She checked the overhead route display out of habit. Instead of showing the next stop, the screen displayed the exact time and date of her first night on this route 3 years ago.
Dispatch, I'm seeing some kind of error on my internal display.
723. Your GPS shows you still on the Hill segment.
How long until depot?
17 minutes.
Lena glanced at the dashboard clock. It already read 3:37, the time she normally pulled into the depot lot. The man in the middle seat sat forward, elbows on his knees now, like a commuter leaning in to catch an announcement.
They let you think it's linear the first few years.
His words carried that same impossible weight, coming not just from his throat, but from the metal ribs of the bus, from the hanging straps, from the floor under her feet.
Who were you?
The question played back over the cabin speakers twice, first in her own voice, then in a version that sounded like it had been recorded years ago and left to collect dust.
I'm the one you passed when you didn't stop.
The image surfaced before she could stop it. Her first winter on the route, a storm, a schedule already behind, a figure at the hill stop waving frantically as she rolled past, telling herself the shelter would protect him until the next bus.
He never made it to the depot on any road after that.
The bus shuddered as if something heavy had hooked onto its back bumper. Lena eased off the accelerator. The road ahead did not change.
Dispatch, what's my exact position right now?
Hill segment between stop 49 and 50.
Elapsed time on route.
3 hours, 12 minutes.
The bus clock still insisted it was 3:37. Lena realized the only time that seemed to move was the estimate to depot on the dispatch side, creeping down toward zero every time she asked about it, then jumping back up when she looked at her own clock.
You don't have to answer them when they call, you know.
The man's voice had softened, almost kind.
You could let the bus talk for you. It's been practicing your answers for years.
As if on cue, the radio crackled.
723. Heavy rain warning coming in. You okay to finish the loop?
Lena opened her mouth to answer.
We're fine. Came her own voice through the bus speakers, clear and steady.
Her hands were not on the radio button.
Copy. 723. See you at depot.
The man in the middle seat leaned back again, satisfied.
You let it answer once.
Outside, the city finally changed. The glass offices were gone, replaced by older facades, faded lettering, closed shop fronts Lena didn't recognize. The depot entrance appeared ahead, but not the depot she knew. The logo on the sign was an older version, the paint a different color, fewer cameras on the fence. The bus rolled through the gate without her touching the brake.
Welcome back, Lena, said a voice over the depot intercom.
It was her own, from a morning years ago when she had first checked in at that exact gate. The man rose from his seat as the bus eased into a lane that was both full and empty at once. Parked buses overlaid with ghost versions of themselves in different paint schemes and route numbers.
Time to sign off.
He stepped toward the front, but instead of the ramp, his feet found an extra step that hadn't been there before, a drop into darkness just beyond the fare box. Lena saw no bottom, only the thin, rising sound of many radios turning on at once somewhere below.
You can get off here if you like.
His outstretched hand was dry now, no trace of rain. Behind him, in the depths, she heard dispatch voices layered over each other, all asking the same question in different ears.
Route 723. Status check.
Lena did not answer them. Instead, she reached up, switched the bus radio off, and waited. For the first time since she had started driving nights, the bus was completely silent inside. Then, gently, as if she'd never had a choice, the engine turned itself off. The man on the extra step smiled without showing teeth and let his offered hand fall back to his side.
We'll keep driving for you, then.
He stepped down into the dark and was gone. When Lena opened the front doors, dawn was just beginning to gray the depot lot she recognized again. The logo current, the cameras in their usual places. Her check-in terminal printed a strip of paper noting a minor delay on the hill segment and one anonymous passenger, destination not recorded. Weeks later, she would sometimes hear her own voice answer dispatch before she could reach the radio, giving calm updates she hadn't thought to phrase that way. She never asked what route it thought it was finishing when it spoke for her. On some storms, passing the hill shelter, she could see another bus through the rain for just a moment, running the same line in parallel with hers, every seat full of drivers she recognized only from the way they held the wheel. Echo stories when stories whisper through the dark.